We will be starting this show. The countdown goes so fast. What's up? Hi, welcome. This is Book Club. We are chatting about this book. This is part one. And what that means is this week we'll be chatting about the first half of the book. And then we're changing up this month a little bit. And when I say that, we are going to be doing the first week of the month. And instead of the second week of the month, we're doing the last. We're swapping with Nerdist. So usually Nerdist is on hold for our last week. We thought, November. Who knows November? Who knows Venber is what we're doing. And so we're swapping that out, which means we are bookending this month. So the first half, and I know it's a little tricky because we're juggling lots of books. And thank you, Gory. Yes, that was a pun. I liked that one, actually. We are bookending this. Oh, that's a pun too. Bookend. It's book club. With this particular book, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. It is a fantasy book. Dada! Thank you so much for resubbing for your 4th month. That's very, very sweet. Lovely to have you around. This is a book that, real talk, I attempted to read back in 2014 unsuccessfully. I read nearly half the book, and although I liked it, I just stopped one day. I don't know what it was. I think it kind of just dragged. It was a lull. I found something else better, and I just kind of completely got sidetracked. And it was the wrong book at the wrong time. That's exactly right, Kate. So that's what I was doing. And then I went to Hawaii in March this year, and I was very, very dedicated to bringing and almost finishing a book. I read half of this book on that trip, and I just didn't quit it. Now, I read about 90, if not 95%, listen to 95% of my books these days. I use Audible. I have very much been an advocate, and I'm waiting for them to pay me, Amazon, because I can't shut up about how much I love Audible. I like to multi-purpose. I love to walk around my neighborhood listening to an audiobook. That is my happy place. And I'm also starting to go to bed every night listening to a chapter as well. I like being read to. But this book I had a physical copy of, where it's probably in my bedroom, and it's looking pretty tattered, I might say. And I just find that I have to get into a headspace reading now. What will happen the first couple of pages, my mind isn't switched off. I'm thinking about things I need to do. I'll pick up my phone, rinse and repeat. It's a very, so I got earrings on. It's just not easy for me. But as soon as I get in the zone, I can read for like 2 hours and not come up for air. So I just find audiobook to be a little bit more efficient. Kate says, I really like this book when I read it a year ago. Clever Girl says, I'm enjoying this book. Aaron said, Jimmy's not liking this book. I am really interested to hear the different perspectives of this. Some people loving it, some aren't. And this is what this discussion is all about, which is going to be really, really cool. And the cartographer says, I did a big rearrangement of my bedroom this weekend and I listened to this while moving stuff. I had a tough time stopping the audiobook. Aaron was like, I did that with the first Dark Tower Gunslinger book. It took me 2 tries before I can finish it. Some books are just like that. They just don't stick, and you got to be in a good headspace. The Literary Method, first time in the chat. Welcome to Geek Bomb's book chat that we do. Lovely to have you here. Says Sanderson only gets better from here. Eddie says, so audiobooks have changed how you approach physical ones now, eh? That is correct. Thierry says, I'm having difficulties getting into Mistborn's story. Okay, fantastic. This is really interesting. Thierry, I noticed we don't have you in the chat this week, though, because I wanted to shout you out for renewing your subs for the 14th month. Oh, thank you for the follow, Literary Method. Glad to have you a part of a book chat. I find personally that more people need to be reading books. It is a huge part of my life. I took off book reading probably after high school because in high school you were forced to read. And then after high school, I wanted to read. Darcy's here, my brother, who's writing a fantasy book right now. Good on you, Darcy. You need to be joining me for these because we're talking fantasy and you're writing fantasy. And I think that it's really, really important for you as someone writing a book to read as much fantasy as you can, to get familiar with styles, get to hear how they're writing about magic use, world building, all of it's super, super, super important. Darcy's basically my brother, Dorizo, who's in the chat comments there. He's basically enlisting me to help him with his book, just to not fact check in a way, but just to make sure that he's not writing something that he doesn't realize someone else has already written. And I will say you're pretty close to Wheel of Time, which I really want you to read. This one, we did it for Book Chat when Book Chat was Discord only in 2019. I read this once. It does not look like it. This one was a fucking struggle. Apparently it gets better and the series is worth reading. I was actually able to interview the cast of The Wheel of Time for Nerdist, and I'll be posting some of that on my TikTok, which I'm super excited about. Darcy's already done some changes. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Kid Jen says, I am loving it. I've already read the first 3 Stormlight archives, so I'm already a Sanderson fan. Welcome, Kid Jen. Lovely to have you here. You're quite new to the Book Chat. Are you not? I saw that you signed up and we've been talking on the Discord already, which is a Patreon privilege. If you are on the Patreon, please join our book club. There's an actual chat in there where you can join the show and talk, because we actually have a book club here. It's not just me, blah, 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 even though that happens a little bit too much. But we have, how many? About 10, 12 people all in the chat right now, and we will be having discussions about this book. So if you want to jump onto the Discord and you can see the book club voice chat in there, jump on in. I'm excited to chat with you about this. All right, so let's get stuck into it. I'm going to read us a little bit about Brandon Sanderson, the author who has done a bunch of books. I will say I tried to start Stormlight Archives about 3 or 4 years ago, and the narrator on Audible took me out of it, who is, funnily enough, the same narrator for this series. His name's Michael Kramer. It is an acquired taste for me. And I noticed that if I can push through with that, then it becomes fine. But initially I was like, ugh. Funnily enough, Michael Kramer is the same narrator who did The Wheel of Time, which is why I had to read that one and not listen to it also. Thierry says, I'm not going to lie, I'm only 3 chapters in and I still have no idea what's going on, except that I have a Django Unchained vibe from those 3 chapters. Okay, I like that. We will be spoiling a lot. We will only be addressing the first half of this book. I've got chapter breakdowns. I've got some questions about the magic we'll chat about, and I'm going to talk about the author and the book. Avery says, I hate his voices for both Vin and Alend. So do I. So do I. That is not how they sounded in my head when I read them. Kate says, I really need to get to reading the Stormlight Archives and to finish Mistborn. Yes. Clever Girl says, I read Wheel of Time so long ago. I should probably reread it. It was a bit of a slog. Alrighty. Thank you so much, Rads, for the follow. Welcome to Book Chat. We do it usually the first 2 Wednesdays of the month. This particular month, we are doing the first and last Wednesday of November, but we'll be covering the same book the whole time. Alrighty, about the author. Brandon Sanderson is a prolific fantasy and science fiction writer with more than 20 titles in his collection. He originally attended, one moment please, Brigham Young University as a biochemistry major. Chemistry, physics, interesting. But ultimately earning a master's in creative writing. Darcy, I think you should try and get a degree in creative writing. He published his first manuscript, Elantris, in May 2005. He lives with his wife, Emily, who also serves as his part-time business manager, and 3 children. A little bit about the book. For the past 1,000 years, ash falls from the sky and mist cloaks the world at night. The Skarr live in misery under the Lord Ruler, who reigns with absolute power. And yeah, you have to do the voice. I'm sorry, but you have to do the voice. It's the blurb. It's the setting. It's in a world. Sorry. Who reigns with absolute power and ultimate terror, divinely invincible, until Kelsier, a half-Skarr Mistborn, turns his talents to overthrowing the tyrant. He recruits the underworld's elite, the smartest and most trustworthy allomancers, each of whom shares one of his many powers, and all of whom relish a high-stakes challenge. His plan is still a long shot until he meets Vin, a half-Skarr orphan who discovers her true powers as a Mistborn under his tutelage. Together, this crew attempts to pull off the greatest rebellion the world has ever seen. Dun, dun, dun. Now, we have a first-time chat. Mazlav, I would highly recommend Brandon's BYU lecture series for any aspiring fantasy writers. They're up on his YouTube channel. Do you hear that, Darcy? Thera J. Put, thank you so much for the follow as well. So that's a little bit of a blurb about the Mistborn, the start of the Mistborn trilogy, the Final Empire, which is where we're at. Thank you, Jimmy. Alrighty, so a couple of the first questions. I want to do a bit of an intro to our book chat members that are live right now. I would love to get a sentence or two from everyone about their first impressions of this book. I think the best way to get stuck into this is, did you take to the book? Or was it a little bit hard to get into? What did you like about it? What was gripping for you? Or what was a little bit difficult to navigate? I'm going to go reverse alphabetical order this time to give Avery a break. So Strawberry Brie, hello. Your Halloween costume was chef's kiss. Well done for that one.
Thank you.
But Brie, I would love to hear from you. How did you find Final Empire, the first book for the Mistborn trilogy?
I really like it. It's just a little intimidating how long it is, and trying to read that, and then I was trying to read the other book that we finished at the end of the month, so I'm only on chapter 9. Okay. I don't mind any spoilers, but so far I enjoy it. It's just a lot to get into, and at first I also struggled first few chapters, and I tried to do the audiobook and I couldn't do it.
Is it because of the narrator?
I think so. I've listened to audiobooks before, but this one I just couldn't. I don't know what the deal was. I just couldn't figure out where he was going, what the story was. And I was like, okay, I have to just pick up the book and read it.
Yeah, I've confessed that this was a second time's a charm for me. So there is absolutely no shame with that. And I didn't love the narrator. It took me a little bit to get into it, and it was more of a I had to, not wanted to. So I get that. And you are kind of kept in the dark a little bit for the first few chapters where you're like, wait a second, what? Huh? The world building is kind of like very little exposition. You're given hints of things, but we'll chat about that. But thank you for that. Jimmy, you don't like this one. Tell me why.
Hello. Let's see here. When I was reading the book, it like you said, it felt kind of slow, droll. I don't know, like whatever terms there are to explain how slow moving it was. It was like watching molasses come out of a bottle. It was, and I was just like,
all right, it was a slow pour. Got it.
Yes, exactly. I thought I would have fallen asleep to Foundation, but I actually fell asleep to this book several times. Wow. I actually banged my head on the counter. It was pretty funny.
Wow. Oh, you really did, literally?
Yes, I literally banged my head on the counter. I was reading it.
Boy.
And I was asleep.
You know what? I actually think as a book reader, it is always good. And I will confess which one mine is because of the narrator. It's always good to have that book that will put you to sleep. Because if you have insomnia or if you need to get a good night's sleep, dedicate a chapter to that book and you're out like a light. So I think that's always a good thing to have because I'm a woman of my word. My book series, and I'll play you a slight excerpt so you can see why, even though I listen to my books at 1.5, sometimes 1.6. If I want to fall asleep real fast, I listen to Exile by R.A. Salvatore.
Drizzt looked out Belwar's open door at the daily routines of the Svirfneblin city, as he had every day for the last few 10 days. Drizzt felt as though his life was in a state of limbo.
So you see how it's kind of like wisty?
It is very wispy.
His way of speaking is predictable to me. He has a melodic pattern to how he speaks that I find it predictable. And that's like, boom, I'm out. Yeah, look, Brie, the speed is fast. Rachel's like, oh, that's too fast. Yeah. The speed would keep you awake. Listen, I don't know if it's like my ADHD, but that speed is so easy for me to just absorb. And I think I need it that fast so that my mind stays focused on the words, because if it's too slow, I'll drift. But if it's that fast, I have to keep, my attention on it. El de Jour, thank you so much for following. Lovely to have you here. It is melodic ASMR. I agree with you on that one. Ups and Downs says, I just wanted to pop in and let you know I love not only this book, but the entire Mistborn era series. Mistborn era 1, that is. I've read it like 3 or 4 times. Ups and Downs, you are going to have a blast. Manta listens at 1.5. Ups and Downs listens at 1.35. Avery says, 1.2 or 1.3, depending on the narrator. Yeah, I'm like Manta, 1.5 or bust. Blah, blah, blah. It sounds a bit like a rainstorm hitting the window. I love that, Maslav. I love that a lot. Thank you, Thierry. It's the narrator that is bad because they are reading the book instead of acting the book. That's what I like to say. There's a difference between reading words and telling the story. That's the... Oh, what did I eat? My allergies. Oh, I think I had chocolate. I found a store that had British and Australian chocolate. You bet your butt I bought some of that and I wolfed it down. I had a violet crumble. If you know, you know. Ups and Downs says, I tried the Stormlight series, but I could never get into them. I had the exact same problem. I listened to the first chapter of that about 6 times. I could not get there. Just Kidding says, I read the book first and then listen to the audiobook. Definitely agree that something about the audiobook was not on point for some reason. As far as the book itself, there are definitely pacing issues, but as a lore king, loved the world building, though some people might not. I like that. Lisa listens at 1.75. Ooh, queen. The queen of speed. Bow down. I didn't get Tim Tam's Ups and Downs. I've eaten so many of those. Michelle listens at 1.3. It helped with this narrator. We've got the chat here as well, so you can read along to what I'm referring to a lot of the time. Kate we are already on tangents, which I love. In the Discord, Gory has just posted the Violet Crumble. So if you're on the Discord for reading, you can see what that's all about. Kate said, not chocolate, but dessert, pavlova or lamington. Fuck, they're so good. They're both Australian desserts. A pavlova is, I don't even know how to explain it. It uses a lot of egg whites, but it's like kind of like it's so good. I had pavlova last Christmas. My Australian friend made it, drizzled with berries, and it was, I think I had 3 servings. It was so good. So just because of that, I'm going to say pavlova. All right. Meringue layers. You choose Lamo. Do you like the jam in the middle Lamington or just whatever? A Pavington, says Cheese Jaffles. Just combine both of them. Love it.
I like raspberry a lot. So
yeah.
Lamingtons, but I'm not a huge fan of meringue, so that's why I choose Lamington over pavlova.
If someone could make a Lamington pavlova, it would solve everything. Oh, we're posting all pictures of the desserts in the Discord chat. We are up to Radia. This book.
I got it on a whim a couple months ago, or maybe 1 month ago, from the library, just because I'd heard of Brandon Sanderson and I wanted to try some of his fantasy books. I kind of felt the same as others, where the beginning was really slow. The second half, I really got into it though.
Oh, so you finished the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, second half goes bonkers, but that'll be keeping that one a secret. Okay, so beginning is a bit slow, and it's all a bit of like learning and world building and exposition and explanation of the powers. But then once you've got equipped with all the information, full steam ahead with story.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with it. I might get the next one. I don't know. I'm not in as much a reading mood lately, so I need to get back into it.
How can we help you?
The book club itself helps because it makes me read.
There is an accountability. We have deadlines.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Bedtime reading, or are you listening to the audiobook?
I usually read the actual book like an ebook or something. The audiobooks, it's hard for me to get into.
Yeah, fair. Especially this one. And the thing is, it's like once a voice actor has started and like gains notoriety, everyone starts using them. Like Simon fucking Vance. If he ever sees this, I'm so sorry. You're doing so well. You're very successful. But this is like the 5th book that I've heard you narrate. And because I have like an audio sensory kind of thing, like when I was reading, what was the last book that we did? The Addie LaRue. And I was like, this is the narrator for Gone Girl. What's her name? Cara Dunn? What's her name? But the female role in Gone Girl. And so I was like, I'm struggling to differentiate because it's the same voice. Yeah, Simon Vance did Dune, did Interview with the Vampire. There was like 2 others in there. There's one by a book that I'm trying to get everyone onto, which is Brent Weeks, the Night Angel trilogy. It's just all Simon Vance. And now with Mike Kramer.
Yeah, I had a friend with the opposite thing where she had a narrator she liked. So she actually found new books she liked just by following that narrator around, kind of.
Wow.
That's how she found the Mercedes Thompson series.
Yeah, wow. I mean, there's some narrators that I really, really dig. Like I've really gotten accustomed to Elizabeth Evans, who did all of basically Sarah J. Maas's books except the Court of Thorn and Rose series. But I started getting really like accustomed to it. We all know that I can't shut up about the Dresden Files audiobooks because of James Masters. So when it works, it's great. When it's not, you just have to push through. And that can be a little bit annoying sometimes. KP Dubs, I see you resubscribing for your 8th month. Thank you so much. And Mac McGee, little Mac McGee, thank you so much for dropping those bits as well. Good to see you again. In fact, you just commented, I admit I always read books mostly from male perspectives as a kid, being a male and all, but I'm starting to realize a lot of perspective learning can occur from intentionally reading more female author books and female characters. Yeah, absolutely. And then you can kind of see what a female gaze is all about. Yeah. Embrent Aaliyah says, I found Sabriel, which I love because Tim Curry reads it. That's cool. Kate says, I really want to read Night Angel. I will make you. That's how that will happen because it's so good. I really enjoyed it. She also says, sometimes there is a feeling of what you should be reading instead of what you want to read. Read what you want, even if you feel like it's not trendy or cool or not challenging enough. Read a kid's book, read a graphic novel, read a dumb popcorn romance or airport book. I find a lot of customers that have that problem too. Yeah, I read a lot of borderline smart the way that fantasy is going these days, and I don't care. I have to live vicariously through fictional characters because that's where I'm at in life. Scott Brick and Simon Vance are 2 of my favorite all-time books. Scott Brick, I just recently listened to Scott Brick. What did he do? Scott Brick did, I think I'm listening to, Scott Brick did, come on, anyone? Scott Brick, I swear we just listened to a book that Scott Brick narrated. Was it the Foundation series? There it is. It was a Foundation series. You put a name at me. I'll remember it. I'll try anyway. Alrighty. Darren, are you there? If you're there, Darren, how are you finding this book? If you don't want to unmute and chat, you can also write it in the hashtag reading or in the Twitch comments, and I can read your comment for you.
Hello?
Hello, Darren. How are you finding Mistborn?
It's good.
What do you like?
I've read it a couple times, actually. So it's all not new to me, so I kind of know where everything's going.
What do you like about it?
I just found it sort of a different spin on sort of the magic system. I thought was pretty cool. And it's powerful, but it's also very limiting in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah. I like it when magic has consequence, so you're not just overpowered and it just is ridiculous. I agree with you. When did you first read it?
Probably a couple years ago. I don't know how I found it, but I think it was the first Sanderson book that I've read. But I've read that, and then most of his other stuff since then.
You've read a lot of Brandon Sanderson?
Yeah, I've read the Stormlight Archive stuff, and I've read some of his newer what's this, the sci-fi one that he's been doing lately. I forget what it's called.
So do I. Which one's the best? Does he get better as an author the more that he writes?
I find that a lot of his stuff is a bit different. So like the Stormlight Archives reads a bit differently than the Mistborn stuff. And the books are a bit different, and the Stormlight Archives are definitely a bit more massive. And I found, they've definitely sort of grown as he's written them. So the nice thing about him is that he's very prolific.
Thank you, Kakahu.
In his writing, and you know when he's going to be. He's not a George R.R. Martin waiting forever for the next book.
He's pushing them out. In fact, he's helping other people finish their series because they might pass away by the time they're done. So he's good with his word. Pun. Thank you so much for that, Darren. Lovely to have you on the show. Kate, I want to read your comment that you just wrote, actually. We also tend to stick to the same book lanes. Most of us, that would be white fantasy. I love that poster who said that they started to read a female perspective. I love that. Read a book by someone from a different walk of life from you. Read a different race or sexuality or a translated language. I'm really digging that. I think I've kind of confessed that I've never read nonfiction or self-help, and I have the last couple of years. I read what's it bloody called? The Alchemist. I finally bloody read The Alchemist. It was Jeremy Irons, though. Oh, what a great voice. It's like Skarr giving me lessons in life.
Jeremy Iron.
Sorry?
Jeremy's Iron.
Jeremy's Iron?
That Simpsons joke.
Oh, got it. I was like, do I get his name?
Simpsons deep cut.
The Shinning? Do you want to get sued? Yeah. How are you finding this one, Kate?
Well, it's been a while since I read it. I didn't reread it just before this, but I really, really liked it when I read it. And I really liked the main character, and I really like Magic World. And as you were calling on me, I was typing up a message that as far as like Brandon Sanderson's writing, I really enjoy his writing as well. I also enjoy, if we're talking about genre writers, that as a Mormon, he does not shoehorn Mormonism into his writing some other Mormon writers, cough, Stephanie Meyer and Orson Scott Card.
Oh, Orson Scott Card.
And Stephanie Meyer shoehorn their Mormonism into their writing, so I really appreciate that Sanderson doesn't do that.
What was the last book that we read it was the Dresden Files, where it was a really interesting take on religion as someone who's not necessarily religious, but having putting them in the realm of...
Yes, with Michael, because it was like his belief where like cross thing only works if you're like actually religious. It's not just like a blanket, like I as an atheist couldn't use a cross against a vampire because it's all about beliefs. And I really liked that.
Yeah.
But I really like Brandon. He doesn't try and be preachy about it.
Well, I like how Sazed is collecting religions and he's like trying to find the most suitable one for Kelsier to worship. I like that because that's essentially what a belief system is. It's not a one size fits all. It's you believe what closely represents your values. And I kind of like that it's like, how many religions were there? He was like kind of giving like 400 and something different types of religions. So I kind of like that. And again, we're talking about sort of faith and beliefs instead of sort of religion.
But I also really like that the way Sanderson sets up how magic works in his worlds, you can connect those dots. It's not just, it's magic, which is like a legitimate thing. It's like to explain magic, it's magic. But you could actually see like someone could eventually do as like a fan project, write like a textbook. Because all the data is like scientifically there for how this magic works, right? And you can use like, the chemistry of like metal and things. So I find his magic building is really good, especially even among like all kinds of other fantasy stuff. It's where it's very, almost laid out, like I said, like a textbook. So I found that part really cool as well.
Which
I like the characters in the story too.
It kind of goes hand in hand with what Maslov is saying, which is the only place where Brandon's religion shows is lack of explicitly sexual content. You know how we talk about a lot with fantasy writers where it's boobily boobed down the boobs. There's very much there's, when I say that though, Maslov, there is explicit sexual content here where it's men in power are completely abusing women and then killing them after. So we're looking at the severity of it, and it's not like it doesn't happen. But they also follow up saying a lot of his stuff reads actually critical of religion, which is quite interesting. Disco Copper says, I hate any form of entertainment that tries to shoehorn any sort of agenda or propaganda. Most of the woke stuff in media today is really getting ridiculous because it undermines the original works. Too much to go into. I understand what you're saying. I think that using entertainment as a way to deliver a message and explore outward thinking and different perspectives is super important. But what I will say is with storytelling, what we're doing, especially with a woke agenda, is telling, not showing. And I think the number one way if you're bonking someone over the head with a message instead of showing them, that's where the problem lies. So I don't necessarily have an issue with a wokeism. Like if there's a lot of diversity, fantastic. If there's messaging or if there's inclusivity, I'm all for it. But I think when it starts feeling like a quota, or when it's kind of, very much being spoon-fed to you in a way that is affecting the entertainment value. Because I think really, really good entertainment and really good storytelling is providing enough information that makes you want to think about it afterwards. That's when it's effective, instead of being told this is what you must do. Like let us, it just makes the audience feel a little bit stupid. And it's like, let me figure it out. Like, let me process it. Let me have a thought process on this, please. And let me come to that conclusion. I don't know if anyone else has a thought about that, because it's kind of going into, it's treading in an area, may I say. Condescending wokeness, Just Kidding says, is what undercuts enjoyable content. Thank you, Bianchi. Thank you. But I think, I don't know if Eternals is not out yet, but that kind of walks the line a little bit as well. Thank you so much, Kate. Michelle, how are you finding the book?
I am really enjoying it. This is technically the second time I read it. The first time I read it was almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
But I was in the middle of a soulless corporate America job, and I remember very little from that time in my life.
What is it like this time?
I was drowning myself. It's, I think I just got so into it because I was doing something else while listening to it. So for me, it was like a really good thing to do while doing chores. And I was like, oh no, I'm not done, but I have to turn the book off. Oh no. So it definitely got me into the groove. I agree that I think the beginning couple of chapters are slow, but once it starts getting heisty, I'm like all in. But yeah, I think it's just a very enjoyable read.
Geek Bomb Book Chat loves a heist, let me say. And if you don't, I apologize, because it is my jam and we will continue to read said books. You had me at Six of Crows. I've already got, and I will sing its praises until my throat bleeds. And that is Lies of Locke Lamora, which we got to cover next year. Oh, it's such a good book. And we are getting heist vibes again. In fact, Aaron was like, this feels a little bit like a steampunk Ocean's 11. And I was like, how good is that? Loving it. I'm glad that you're reading this one again. Kate and I are on that Locke Lamora hype train. Digging it big time. Thank you so much, Michelle. Avery says, I see the word heist and I buy it. Mm-hmm. And that's why we made a book club. So we found our people, essentially. I want to read a comment really quickly from Aaron, who, just on that talking point we had earlier, said the difference between giving knowledge and earning knowledge. Well said. I really like that. Lise, I know that you've just been reading up to the deadline, but how have you been finding it?
Well, this is my third read of the book, actually. So I read it probably about 5 or so years ago for the first time, and just never continued with the series until about 2 years ago. Me and I I have a group of girlfriends who have our own little book club kind of thing where we read together. So we read the whole series together, and I just love it. I love Brandon Sanderson's writing. I've talked about it before. Like, I have aphantasia, so I don't picture things when I read. But with the way he writes things, I'm able to kind of imagine it. And then to me, that's the first time I've ever had that feeling where it is like a movie. And so I just love it. I love his writing. And this is just such a fun series. And I love the characters. And I love the magic system, everything about it.
I completely agree with that writing. And what it is, it's almost like describing movements with the reaction, with information. So you can kind of see exactly how it looks when it's happening. A great understanding of the writing. Yeah. What I think I'm listening to, Frankenstein. What is that one? The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. They do that a little bit as well. Like, she's asked a question and she stops mid-spoon. She does that twice. Very funny. But I love that kind of writing as well, where it's easier to visualize it. Great storytelling, Kakahu, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello. How are you finding it?
This is actually my second time reading it. The first time was back in 2009 or 2010. And I know back then I really got into it pretty quick and continued through all his series after that. And that was actually with the audiobook back then. And this time I'm doing a mix of reading it and listening to the audiobook.
Which one are you preferring?
And I'm honestly good with both. Michael Kramer's never been a problem narrator for me, other than like in some of the Wheel of Time books where he'd change his pronunciation of names in the middle of the book. That's pretty much the only problem I've had with him. Otherwise, I like him as a narrator.
Okay.
But I do like 50-50 between reading physical books and listening to audiobooks.
Glad to have you back. I think 10 years is a really good time between reading, because you've just, in that amount of time, you've totally forgotten it, except the feeling of enjoyment, which is like why during COVID, I went back to all the things where it's like, I completely forget what it is, but I remember enjoying it. And that means there's no risk involved because it's guaranteed good time.
Yeah, picking it back up again, reading it again. It was pretty much chapter 1, listening to Vin again, that I was just hooked right back in there.
Like, it feels like home.
To finish again.
I dig that. Aaron.
Hello.
Same question.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the book. Like like you mentioned before, I kind of thought it was like steampunk Ocean's 11, where it's like the main guy is like, really trusting the crew versus like the Crows to like, just juxtaposed on that one is like he trusted his crew members to a point, but not with everything. Yeah. He kept secrets a lot, whereas Kelsier is like, I'm literally giving you the plan and I'm willing to take ideas from people. Like, he completely trusts most people to, a certain extent, of course, but not with everything. But when it comes to the plan, it's like, yeah, I'll delegate. I'll let people come up with their own ideas if it's a good one.
I think trust is a massive theme in this book as well, which I want to explore with the chat too. But yeah, good take on it.
Especially with like, Vin as like the opposite of like Kelsier's, like she's, still learning what it means to be and a Mistborn, allomancy and all that stuff. And I was like very, very experienced, and she has no trust, like completely, distrustful of everybody.
She's still in survival mode.
Oh yeah.
There's a difference between surviving and thriving. Vin and Kelsier.
So far, she's learning by the end of chapter 20 to like, start to open up to people, which is already kind of like, oh, you're gonna get hit so hard, aren't you, girl?
Yes, we already want to protect her. Colleen, same question.
I'm actually really enjoying the book. I can see what everybody's saying about kind of a slow start, but I was reading another book. I'm still reading another book at the same time that moved a little faster.
Right.
But once we really started getting into the magic system, I thought, oh yeah, I taught this in school. I taught about every reaction there's an equal and opposite reaction, and these different things. So I really liked that. I'm also really fascinated by the family dynamics, the difference between Vin's family and Kelsier's family. There are some similarities. There's some friction between the siblings, but it's so different. And I'm just really appreciating seeing how that develops.
Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about sibling relationships in this one because I agree with you completely. And Avery, lucky last now.
Yeah. So this is actually my second time reading this one as well. The first time I read it was actually like the first adult fantasy book that I read. Back when I was in that stage where I like was ready to kind of leave YA but wasn't quite sure how. So I found this one, and I think it was a really good transition for me because of the fact that, Vin's still young, still kind of learning things, so it's kind of got that, but then it's also got, like, all of the, like, adult characters and everything, so it kind of helped me to get into the adult fantasy genre.
It's a good stepping stone.
Yeah, so I loved it then, so of course it's always going to have, like, that special place for me now because it did introduce me to the new step of reading. But yeah, I am listening to it mostly this time, and I already said that I don't necessarily like some of the voices that the narrator does, but I'm like listening to it like at work mostly because I do a lot of like make crafts and organize things. So it's a lot of stuff that I don't really have to think a lot about. Yep. So it's really nice for that. And I am really enjoying reading it again. And it's funny as things are going, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember that now. That thing that I just like did not remember at all. So yeah, quite fun.
Awesome. I love that we kind of got everyone's input on that. It looks and sounds like it's majority positive going into this one. Aaron says, if heist-type elements is your jam, Maude, another reason to read the Hollow series by Kim Harrison. I told you I bought that twice because of you. I bought it twice and I had to return it because I was like, this sounds familiar. I'd already bought it on Audible. So yes, agree with that. Alrighty, let's talk about what first? The characters. Let's fan cast. Alrighty, so to kind of get a good imagery in the heads, let's go over some of the characters. Not all of these are super important right now, but it's good to just have it. It's good to have it in our heads. I put this on the Discord before and asked what everyone, because I think there were 5 different fan casting versions that I found online, and overall we figured this was the more accurate one. I know that Kelsier, I pictured him being about 38, wasn't he? About 38 or so. Simon Baker's a little bit older than that, but it's pretty accurate in terms of the fact that he is blonde. He's kind of got that really great balance of authority and a little bit of ego, but jovial kind of lightheartedness. The thing I love about Kelsier is that this is the most, like, he's in a depression. He is in an incredibly volatile, oppressive regime. And yet he is so happy and light and, well, not happy, but he finds reasons to smile and to joke, which I think is such a powerful asset in that time. Now, Aaron, you've got a little bit of a different fan casting for Kelsier. Do you want to share what yours is?
Yes, funny you were saying. I was just actually typing in that stuff for the Twitch, but mine for Kelsier was Tom Ellis, who was most known for playing Lucifer on Netflix. And you actually even point out, it's like, but he's not blonde. I kind of made a snarky comment back of like saying neither was Lucifer, or neither was he as Lucifer, and he was in the comics. So, and
then you sent an excerpt of what that looked like, and I was like, oh my God, this drawing of the blonde Lucifer is Kelsier. So you sold your point through that. Also, he's got that incredibly almost egomaniacal, charming, suave, smarmy take.
But also like that charismatic like likability. Like even when he's being that smarmy self, it's like he's smarmy to people he's like he thinks deserves it.
Yeah.
And people he cares about, he is very warm
Respectful,
and friendly and helpful, like he is with Vin.
Absolutely true. We have a first time chat in here from a lurking frog who said, hey, not to mention, Kelsia is also a mentalist. Boom. Doesn't often chat. When they do, they drop some bombs. Loving that one. Sprinkles is like, I'm not super keen on celebrity fan casting. I recognize some of those actors. I think for me, it helps if I can visualize an actor when listening to the book because they become more tangible, if that makes sense. It just helps me personally with the story. I don't recognize the Vin actress in this, but I kind of love the casting for it. I think that they would be really cool as long as they are able to really contradict the versions of Vin that we see. So I'm just going to hide this while we chat about Vin for a little bit. What's great about Vin is that it's her point of view and perspective for the majority of this book. We are learning through her. She doesn't realize that she is a Mistborn, which means she's got sort of like those powers, the allomancy powers, where she can consume and ingest metals and burn them to unlock a different power each time. So cool. Vin is in survival mode, as we spoke about. She has an abusive older brother. She's been living on the streets and like kind of in a gang, so to speak, her whole life. And she tries to be as small and unnoticeable as possible as a way to survive. She's regularly beaten. She's only kind of untapped her luck power, as she calls it, where she's an asset. She's used in these heist sort of meetings to be able to manipulate the emotions of whoever they're trying to swindle. What an amazing character, but the evolution that we're already seeing of her, where we're not only seeing Valette, who is the noble persona that she needs to put on to attend balls, which is so double agent. I love we also have steampunk double agent in this as well. And discovering that she actually is behind a mask that is just another version of herself. But we're also discovering the real Vin. And that is brought out by people that she feels safe and comfortable around, which so far is kind of only two people, Kelsia and Elend. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm actually realizing that all my guards are down and I can really be me. And it's like she's discovering who she really is for the first time. So with this fan casting, I think that could be incredible. I kind of love Elend here. If you don't know Daniel Porter, him and I, we're friends. We hung out at New York Comic Con in like 2014 or something. What a freaking legend. He played the Squire in Game of Thrones. What's his bloody name? Podrick. Yeah, he's really lovely as well. But I think he's got that sort of like, he can absolutely do the noble aristocrat with rebellious tendencies. So I think that's great casting. We've got our heist team with Ham, Breeze, Dox, and Clubs. Clubs' protege, Spook. So we'll just start with those. If you don't recognize, I think Ham, he was in... Is this the actor from... I don't know. Okay, moving on. Breeze... this is actually a comedic actor who's doing more serious work. It is Westworld. Okay, cool. It is Westworld. Pianki. Great. Okay, that's who I thought it was. I can't remember the actor's name of Breeze. I think he's got a 3-parter name, but he was in I, Tonya as the best friend. He's fantastic. He was on the Hunger Games films, second and onward. Oh, Ham was. Got it. Doxon is Colin Firth. I need a picture of Daniel Maslany so I can see that one, Colleen, if you're able to drop it in the Discord chat. And Clubs, of course, is in Game of Thrones and Harry Potter. Oh, what's his name? I should have learnt all this before the show, but you know what we're talking about. I don't know if it's as important to kind of have casting down for those, since I actually kind of mix up Ham and Dachshund often. But I don't know if I like clubs as much as that. Argus Filch, yes. David Bradley, thank you, Aaron and Avery, loving that. But we're getting a little bit more familiar with these main actors. If there's any more fan casting, feel free to unmute and jump on in with some. Oh, yeah, Colleen, I saw that earlier. He's great. You've actually nailed that casting. He's got, again, sort of like a noble sort of look. And then also that mischievous kind of, but like, he's not threatening at all. But that's who I would picture. That's great casting. If you're in the Discord, head into reading. Colleen, that's an A+ right there.
If I just may add something.
Sure.
Now, again, I'm not too keen on the fan casting, but usually when I think of, casting things, regardless of what it is, I'm always like, wouldn't it be interesting if you put someone there that you wouldn't expect to be in there?
Oh, so like anti-casting.
Exactly. Like for the best example, I don't know if you know the comedian Cedric the Entertainer, but he did The Honeymooners, and it was an all-black cast. And I was like, that's a good idea, like flipping the script a bit, because The Honeymooners is a beloved show in America. Ralph Cramden, bang, zoom,
I did.
I'm sure you've seen The Honeymooners at least once. Okay, well, they play it all the time during New Year's Eve, but
got it.
My point is made.
It is. I get exactly what you're saying. And a lot of the actors sometimes will be like, I'm known for this one thing, so I want to start taking roles that are completely opposite so that I can really carve out my acting path. There's a better word.
Indeed.
I didn't say it. And Michelle even made a great point. It'd be cool to swap out some of the genders with the heist gang. Abso-freaking-lutely. Dachshund could easily be a woman. Kate says, I'd like less white people. Absolutely. One of these days, Alice, boom to the moon. Nope, never heard it. Just kidding. And Aaron is saying, yeah, Peter Mensah is awesome. Love him in anything. And the casting for that was for Sazed, I believe it was, who is the terraceman. And I kind of love that, using sort of our history, that they are the more sort of like, I guess not like a newer, like Australia. Australia, as a white colonized place, is relatively new. We colonized in sort of like the 1700s. And so that's as far back as white culture goes. But then you look at our indigenous culture and it's tens of thousands of years of dreamland stories, their own enriching sort of like lore and mythology. And so kind of tapping into sort of more of a native look, it actually goes hand in hand with the terracemen, who are a much more, I think it was millennia that they've been around, and they store knowledge. And the fact that Sayers can talk to Kelsier about religions, language. They basically they store knowledge, and it's kind of like they're the archives. And I think that that's a super important character to have. I love the character of Sazed. I think that's really well done. If you want to check out Peter Mensah and how he could look as Sazed, the Discord has that image for you as well. Alrighty, let's talk about the magic system. Does anyone want to take a stab at trying to explain it? Allomancy. If you don't, I will. But Colleen.
Well, I haven't looked at the doc, so I don't know how well you've explained it.
It's not in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I see it as somewhat science-based. I mean, he's taken it a step further, and made it magic. But I can see the science behind a lot of it. When he talked to her about, you can't push against something that's bigger than you are, or you could smash yourself against the wall.
Mm-hmm. Consequence.
That's basic physics.
Mm-hmm. It is. Okay, so I'll help you with this. So it's absolutely science-based magic. Allomancy, but basically people capable of allomancy are known as allomancers. They have the ability to use or to burn metals to fuel a variety of physical and mental enhancements or abilities. For an additional burst of power, allomancers can burn their metal quicker, or they can flare it, consuming it faster, but gaining far greater benefits in return. There are a person who can only burn one metal is called a misting, but those who are born with the ability to burn more allomantic metals are known as Mistborn, hence the title. There are 16 metals. I think that could be a spoiler. There's supposed to be about 11, 12 metals that allomancers can use. There are 8 basic metals. There's 4 base and 4 alloys. And then there are 8 higher metals, which are 4 base and 4 alloys. And then there are like the 2 additional metals, which are known as the god metals. And I think one of them is the 11th metal that we were talking about here. Some of the basic metals we're talking about are steel, iron, tin, pewter. They're all physical. So steel and iron are about the coin shots. So this is what Colleen was talking about with pushing and pulling. So when you turn on these, blue lines will erupt from any source of metal so that you have sort of like a register and a read on all the metal around you. And using steel, you can push on the metal, which will propel you. And then with iron, you can pull on the metals. And so if you only, this is like a kind of a fault or a flaw that I've seen. Hydroblake007, thanks for using your Prime subscription. Welcome. Thanks for the follow also. We do book chat usually the first 2 Wednesdays of the month. This time we're doing the first and the last Wednesday talking about Mistborn. And I'm currently explaining how the powers work. The problem with only having, so usually if you're a misting, you can only use one. I never understood why it wasn't the pair. Because why would you want to soothe if you can't write? Why would you want to push if you couldn't pull? I thought that they should be paired instead of just the one. But from my understanding, if you're a misting, you can only do the one, not the pair, right? Anyone?
Correct.
Yeah, that's dumb. It should be the pair. It should be the yin to the yang. You should have access to that one last little bit. But anyway, everyone's saying, yes, I believe so. That's right. Okay, cool. Okay. I just think that if I were to change anything, it would be the misting is one set, one pairing, one component, so that you could soothe and write, so you can push and pull metals, so you can enhance 5 senses and increase physical capabilities. And that's what I'm talking to with the next set of base metals that are physical is burning tin and pewter. So tin, or tin eyes, as they're colloquially known as, allow the user to enhance all 5 of their senses. They're used as lookouts and scouts because they can see in near darkness. But a major flaw is that burning, if you burn it, a sudden loud noise or a bright light can basically render you stunned. Tin also gives metal stability, allowing the person to utilize all of the information that it provides and allowing them to assess a battle situation quicker than a normal person. Pewter, or thugs, or pewter arms, have the ability to burn pewter, which allows them to greatly enhance their physical capabilities. So a thug can perform or fight physical labor, all that kind of stuff, longer than any normal person. It makes them many times stronger than their normal self. Allows to shrug off wounds or that would usually kill or incapacitate a normal person. And then they can be increased with a sense of balance and vastly increased speed and dexterity. A thug performing a pewter drag can run for many hours at speeds up to approximately that of a galloping horse. This is extremely draining on the allomancer's body and will require the allomancer to burn pewter after completing the pewter drag to keep the body from collapsing in a near-death exhaustion. Another danger is that a thug carrying something that he or she could not carry, and if you run out of pewter to burn, the object you're carrying would crush them, causing serious injury. And then again, if you're burning pewter and you have a wound, once your pewter runs out, that wound can kill you at that time. We go then into mental abilities with bronze and copper. Bronze basically allows you to detect if you're using allomancy. Copper is the opposite. It will provide sort of like a cloud, a fog, a shroud to hide people from using allomancy powers. Zinc, if you burn zinc, you can riot, which means you can inflame the emotion of those nearby. So you can incite riots, hence the name. You can affect a single person or an area, so AoE. Brass is the opposite. They are soothers. So if you burn brass, you can soothe or guide emotions in a particular direction. Again, a single person or AoE. And then there's higher metals like gold, electrum. Some of these we haven't even explored. So I won't go into those right now. And then there's god metals, one of them being atium, which we learn about in the first half of this book. Atium is the most valuable metal in the world. It is slowly mined from the pits of Hathsin. It's basically mined by the prisoners of the Lord Ruler. But this allows the Mistborn to see a few seconds into the future, thereby allowing them to anticipate the moves of an opponent. It can also enhance the mind to cope and understand these new insights, effectively turning a Mistborn invincible for a short time because atium burns very, very quickly. So that is kind of like the science behind the metals. I found this description of a science-based magic very similar to Patrick Rothfuss's Name of the Wind. It is something that you can study. In this book, though, you are gifted with it. It is a genetic disposition. So you're born with it. You either can or you can't. And sometimes it takes, with Mistborns, a very stressful or near-death experience to activate the powers. Majority of people with powers are misting, so they only get one of those. So they are only kind of able to burn the one metal. Mistborn are able to do all of them. So obviously Mistborns are MVPs, the most valuable out of all of them. My question to everyone, and this is not going to be a me ask you, it's an unmute and go for it. If you could only burn one of those metals, having read the powers, which one do you think is the most important? Which one would you want?
I would choose, I believe, did you say it was copper that was the calming one?
Copper is for the smokers. You are talking about soothers, which is brass.
Yeah, so I would choose brass because I think calming is yes, I think that's very helpful because, like if you're in a tense situation, you just go over there and just be like, chill out, people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm choosing.
Oh my God, I wish I could do it on my feed sometimes. Oh, you want to have a fight with me? Just chill out. It's not necessary.
Exactly.
Also, I read your comment saying that me talking about it like this is actually more helpful than having it in the book. So there you go. Maslav says, having only one metal to focus on makes them more specialized. Talented mistings are usually much better at their discipline than the average Mistborn. There you go. Aaron said it was pointed out in the story that having Vin learn from the other misting members of the crew would be good for training because each one specializes in the specific area, giving better insight. Michelle says, I think the 1 versus 2 allomantic metal heightens the power difference between mistings and Mistborn. Just Kidding says, only being able to use one metal makes the heist element of the story more enjoyable and makes more sense. I think that Brando designed the magic system around that and then expanded it once he had a solid grip on what the world story was going to be. You know what? That makes sense. We need one of every one because each one has a particular role in the group heist. Ah, yeah, I like that. Does anyone else have a preferred metal that they would want to burn or a power that they wish to unlock? Michelle.
I think if I was living in the Mistborn world, I would want copper because that seems very useful in the world. But in this world, I would want tin because I think it would be good to have enhanced senses.
I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be more observant.
But you think in the actual world of, I mean, this is what's interesting. The world doesn't have a name. It's not Middle Earth. We don't know what it's called. It's just the world. You think that Tin Eyes, you were saying
I think smokers are probably, I would probably want to be a smoker just because it seems like a very dangerous place and I would want to hide.
Yeah, you are taken off the map. Yeah, your senses are, you have a secrecy. Oh, Big Mac TS, we got a first time chatter here. Says the world is called Skadrial. Get out. Really? The world does have a name, says Maslov. Oh, well, I'll eat my words. Not in the first half of the book, it don't. Lisa says, as someone that has terrible eyesight, I'd go for tin so I could enhance that. Jimmy is like, in this case, smoking is actually helpful. The Cosmere. Got it, Lisa. That makes sense. Per the author. Thank you for that. I think that see, you can't just be steel or iron because you shouldn't be able to push without pull. I think that just being one of those makes zero sense. Colleen would like to be a soother too. I would either want to be a soother or pewter thug. There's just too many benefits. You get stronger. You can run faster. Like in terms of sort of survival, it vastly increases your chance of survival, personal survival. I think this is like interesting because when you break it down, it's like thugs are offensive as well as defensive. So you can fight harder and hit harder, but then you can run and get out of there quicker. Whereas, this is really hard to remember. Copper clouds, coppers, the smokers, that's helping the group. So it's kind of like your bard, right? If we're talking Dungeons and Dragons, they're able to make sure that they keep everyone safe, which is defensive only. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Depends, and I guess it tells a lot about you with how you would, if you would help others, if you would enhance yourself. Big Mac says, on the planet, I would love to be bronze. It gets very interesting, and that is a seeker. So you are able to detect your other mistings and mistborns. If they don't have a copper cloud over it, though. Aaron, you said tin eyes? Tell me why.
Yeah, so I had earlier like the whole iron steel push pull thing, but yeah, the tin eyes would be like the best alternative then if I can only pick one, enhancement, just because then I can get like kind of like the leg up, like, hey, I can hear somebody coming from pretty far away, so maybe I can have time to hide, because
they're great
Pewter
scouts.
would be kind of cool, but it has major drawbacks where I'm guessing like you could have like almost like taking steroids, like the more you use it, eventually the more detrimental it becomes for you. But also tin has its drawbacks, like you said before, bright lights and sudden loud noises, and suddenly you're incapacitated. So everything has its drawbacks.
But that's what I kind of like about it. In Wheel of Time, when you got the Aes Sedai, it's like you can do what? Oh my God, you can heal other people, you can cast fireballs, like you can do so. But it wears them out.
Also mentioned if you draw on too much of that power, you could kill yourself or others and just cause extreme havoc.
But I kind of like that in this case, it's like you can, like, this is what you are able to do. You're staying in your lane, but each one also has its own positive and negative effect. Yeah.
If you're not of nobility or working for nobility and you're found to have these powers,
you're dead.
Hunted down.
You're dead. That's it.
Because you're unregulated, basically.
And for those that don't even realize that they have it. So like Vin was so lucky that she was actually discovered, but she was burning, didn't know how to burn, didn't know it was a metal, didn't know what it was called, just realized that she could tap into this little something.
And only got it because she was drinking just poor mineral-based water from
or using cutlery
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was so, but like
then she just gets one little swig from Kelsier's violence, like suddenly she has the biggest boost, and you find out that's not even like the biggest boost you could get.
Yeah.
Like it's just from a little vial.
And I think that's really interesting. So it's like one time going, I just have a knack to be able to kind of like guess what's on someone's mind. And it's like, little do you know. It's that kind of thing, which I think makes the story kind of relatable in a way, where it's like all of us could have a power, just like a surface level that we haven't been taught about or untapped, I guess.
But I also did like that Ham pointed out when she's like getting her little tutor lesson from him when Kelsier's doing like the big meeting thing, and she's kind of in the back hiding, looking through the peoples. And he's kind of explaining, it's like, yeah, I could use this like, you know, anytime I want, but it's like you have to still also read people. You have to have like that psychology, sociology type of mentality of knowing when to use it, not just knowing how to use it.
And we see time and time again that she is using it and upsetting people, you know? They're like, wait, are you manipulating my emotions right now? So it's like, you have to be discreet with it.
She also has to get out of the habit of using that as a defensive mechanism like she always does.
Yeah, exactly. To try and, again, stay small. And so nullifying their emotions, what a great way to do that. Colleen adds, which is very clever, which is why she's called Clever Girl. I like how it was explained that you had to burn all the metal before sleeping because some of it's dangerous. The first thing that I thought of as he was having her drink vials was lead poisoning. That's the thing. You can't go to sleep with it in your system. You have to know when it's going to run out. There's a lot of like the instruction manual on this kind of power is lengthy. But again, I still think that that's, I don't know, it's kind of interesting world building where it's not like unlimited power. It's incredibly consequential power. Avery said it's lucky that she was caught by Marsh first because otherwise she would not have survived. And just seeing how many people have either left her, abandoned her, or died. Yeah. No wonder she's like, God, so untrustworthy. What should we talk about? Do we want to do chapter breakdowns, or do we want to talk about relationships between characters? What we want to do. Relationships between characters. Fantastic. We're introduced to Vin. We get an understanding of what she's like. She can't trust anyone. We learn that she has an older brother who has just almost broken her down, trying to teach her how to survive. But like, it's bleak and awful. She has a power, her luck, that she can tap into, which is essentially keeping her alive and needed, which we see definitely throughout the rest of the book, where she wants to be an integral part of the team. She wants to know everything and she wants to be useful because she understands that if she's useful, she gets to live another day. Reen, there was casting of Reen. I think it was, is it in this one? No, there was a casting of Reen, the older brother, which was, who's the Spider-Man Green Goblin 2.0? Not William Dafoe, the younger guy. He was in Chronicle. He was in, what's his name? Dane DeHaan. Thank you, Avery. Yeah, that he would have been a good Reen. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. So yeah, Vin's trust issues are up the wazoo. We see the first heist with Camden, who's leading sort of like a way to rip off the government and like the big bads, which you're like, why? Clever Girl. That attitude made me think of Inej, which is from Six of Crows, when she was worried about not being useful to Kaz. Yeah. And what's the common theme? Heist with curated and special abilities. Yeah, I see that big time. Yeah. Emberent says, I think the bronze sounds interesting. Essentially a sixth sense to perceive the somewhat hidden world of Allomancy. What chapter are people up to? Big Mac, we read the first half of the book, so we are stopping at 21. So the first half only, not the second half of the book. Thank you for checking. Appreciate that. What was everyone's first impression of Vin? Do you like Vin? Did you understand Vin? Kate, I heard you earlier saying that you actually liked Vin with this one. Do you get her? Miss Necromancer?
I just had to get to the right window.
Sorry.
Yeah, like I thought she was, a good kind of around. She's very much like, a Harry Potter, kind of character where she's being introduced to this world of magic. She's like the young novice who doesn't know anything and has like all these older people who are like teaching her about it, that sort of thing, like the chosen one kind of trope.
All right. So that was actually one of my questions that I had when we're introduced to the first few chapters. Oh, thank you so much for your sub using Prime. Appreciate that, Big Mac. The first couple of chapters of any fantasy, you're like, all right, what trope are we dealing with? And when I say trope, it's almost like structure of the writing. Is it the chosen one? Is it, do we have that mentor sort of dynamic? And Just Kidding wrote a great comment about that, saying, I find a lot of mentor/student relationships are often handicapped by that very relationship, and often it doesn't evolve beyond that. I think that with Kelsier and Vin, there is a good line of brother-sister/teacher-student and other elements melded, and it doesn't hit you over the head too much/get old too fast. One of the other sort of tropes or ways to do the story, Chosen One is often teamed with sort of the guide, the mentor, the Dumbledore to your Harry, so to speak. Harry Potter definitely deals with the Chosen One. In this particular one, I don't know if Vin's necessarily the Chosen One, but she is one of a handful that have a particular set of powers. Would you say that kind of falls into the Chosen One? Chosen One's like more of like a prophecy or a destiny.
I say it does, though. It's not necessarily a prophecy, but she's got powers that other people don't have. It makes her inherently special. So I guess maybe she's not like chosen for destiny. She's still elevated above, like, a Joe Schmo who would walk into this world, right? She's still fulfilling a role of power.
Yeah. Lisa says, yeah, she's more like a part of the chosen few. Which is true, being a Mistborn. Just Kidding says, yeah, with her being specifically a Mistborn and sharing that only with Kelsier. Colleen says she and Kelsier both seem to have Chosen One characteristics. I agree with that. Aaron, you say you like Vin too. Tell me about that.
I like her just because of the fact that we're getting a lot of character growth from her already. Because beginning part, she is like extremely timid, even though it's not like a full timidity, but because she is a survivor, but she has like major trust issues. Like the very second things look like they're turning bad, she's like looking for any bolt hole to get through, wants to find shadows and any kind of crawl space to go into. Like even when she's among her crewmates, she's like, I don't want to be noticed, I don't want to be seen, leave me alone. She's like constantly in fight or flight. And now that she's with Kelsier in this group, he's like showing her trust. He is, showing her kindness that she hasn't experienced almost ever, even among people she thought were her friends, like that Ulef guy. Like immediately she thought, we just need to go, and immediately turns
He betrays her. I actually loved that moment. I thought it really spelt out super clearly that even the people that she and the fact that she's like, he's not even I don't even know if I can consider him a friend. He's just someone that I kind of would be upset if he died. And so she's like,
which is a horrible mentality,
right? And she's like, with that, I want to try and save his life because I'd be bummed if he died. And he's like, psych, I'm gonna dob you in immediately, and you're gonna get beaten severely, and then, everyone's gonna watch you while it happens.
And then jump ahead when it's like she goes back and the entire crew, that entire layer is just like decimated, and she just looks at his corpse among everybody else, and it's like she doesn't shed a tear. She's just like looking at like, just like she's just observing and just analyzing things like, oh, well, this is a terrible situation, but not actually like feeling emotionally distraught over the fact that somebody she knew about, and spent time with is just dead and destroyed.
Even Kelsier said something about that. He's like, wow, that's stone cold. And she's like, I know.
but now it's like she's more open. She's more, excited about things. Like she's excited about spending time with Ellen and the parties and all that stuff. And just a little disappointed. It's like, well, he's not spending time with me or paying attention to me. Now it's like, and she's feeling like a young girl of 16, 17 now.
But it sucks so much that it's like, oh no, he's using you. And she's like, seriously? Like, is there no one? But it's also interesting, like her relationship with Kelsier, where she's starting to kind of like fill in the blanks, but it's false. Like her narrative is, oh, he's only telling me because I want to be, like, he needs me to be useful. Or he's keeping information from me so I don't leave. And he's like, here's 3,000 boxings. You can leave. She's like, what? I was like, you can go. And she's like, oh my God, I don't want to let them down. She's like, I realize I'm a part of the team and they want me here and they trust me and I have a role.
Like her entire situation is just filled with contradictions within her own mind.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, but she can't help it because of how she was raised.
She's doing so well from what she had. Like, her mum died in front of her, right? Or like tried to kill her, so Reen left.
I think she said to Marsh that she killed her sister, which I'm thinking they hasn't said anything yet, but my prediction is she may have accidentally instigated her mother to kill her younger sister, because now she's like treating her like a queen, in her words.
Yeah.
I think she used her own abilities to like, use the soothing and rioting thing on her.
Oh.
And her brother probably knew it.
I didn't think about that. That's really interesting. I'm going to go through some of the comments. And if you are commenting and you're in the chat, feel free to unmute and talk through your comments as well. Or I'll just address it and make you, or ask you. I'll soothe you. Avery, you like Vin? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I find oftentimes when female characters are written as kind of like shy or timid, especially by male authors, it's like not good.
Yeah.
But Vin actually has reasons for being like that makes sense. And she grows out of it, and she learns to be like independent, and she finds her own inner strength. And that's why I really like her, because you don't get that a lot.
Yeah, I like that. He's done it. The shedding of the skin, and that it was just a version of her. And I kind of love that she's a chameleon in that way. She's like, who do I have to be in this situation to survive? It makes a lot of sense. Michelle.
Yes.
I want to talk about your 2 comments.
Yeah. So I think what I like about this book is that we see both the mentor and the mentee perspectives. And I think it strengthens the other one, because we so often don't see the mentor perspective. But, I think that it just really illustrates the difference in their lives and, the paths. So I think we get a clearer picture of what's going on in the story.
And you're learning more about Kelsey also through Vin, but sometimes the book will switch it up and you'll learn things through Kelsey's point of view. And I love that there's a flexibility to do that, and it's not jarring. It's just a way to be able to provide more information. So I agree with you.
Exactly.
I agree with you.
And yeah, on the second one about like watching, it's like watching teenagers at prom or something. It's like, oh, this is very vulnerable and kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah. And she's like, getting through it. And she's like, wow, I'm learning this for the first time. And they're like, actually, it's not what you think it is. You're a pawn. Yeah, all that. And you're like, oh, honey, she's just using her heart for the first time. Yeah. I guess we go into it. Before we do that, Colleen, I want to talk about the relationship with Vin and her brother. How even though he's physically not in the book, his voice is always in her head, and what that means in the story. That voice of warning,
He's constantly warning her, but he has such a negative viewpoint that it kind of hampers her. It makes it really difficult for her to trust. She's always expecting the worst, which is, on the one hand, a good defense mechanism, but on the other hand, it makes it really hard to have any kind of a relationship.
Yeah.
She can't believe that Marsh and Kelsey don't hate each other.
Yeah. Yeah. But he hits you and he's like, Vin, he has never laid a hand on me. She's like, he's lying. He has to be lying. Yeah, I agree with you. What's interesting is that Reen, her older brother, will pop into her head as a voice of reason. But more and more we understand that it's actually not reason at all. And she has to unlearn what she truly believes reason is, and Reen's life lessons, because they'd worked at the time. She's still alive. But I think sort of relearning all of these things. Like when she kind of warms to Kelsier, watch out, he's just going to leave you. They all leave you. Everyone leaves you. And she's kind of got to be like, shut up, dude. Like that, but she can't help it because that's really kind of what's kept her alive thus far, in a way. Pianki says, the brother in her head is like a continuation of the toxic relationship. And what's really interesting is, the fact that she's seen teamwork, everyone having purpose, people being celebrated, trying to achieve the impossible, that positivity in a bleak, dark world. This is so foreign to her. And she's kind of studying it in disbelief, waiting for the other shoe to drop, you know? Lisa, do you want to comment that? Oh, thank you, Vaidin. Lisa, your comment that you just wrote, I'd love to hear more about that. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I just feel like, you know, she grew up basically just learning from Reen and what he beat into her pretty much. And so she doesn't understand how relationships are supposed to work. She just knows what he's taught her, and it's definitely a very skewed view. I mean, he was trying to keep her safe or whatever, but he definitely went about it the total wrong way, and it's a detriment to her.
Is this what happens when you're raised by fear? You know, is this nature versus nurture kind of thing? Because he does not have nurture. Kate, you said yes.
I actually was just typing that it's very grounded in like psychological study. Like I listen to a lot of true crime kind of stuff where it talks about the kind of like abuse that can create someone like a monstrous someone, right? So it feels very grounded in the kind of things where it's like, if that's all you know, you essentially have to be born into society all over again after you escape the abuse. And Vin's voice can sound like reason because that's all she's ever known. So even though it's toxic, it feels safe because, you know,
it's
everything else is new and it's frightening and she doesn't understand it. Like when she was talking about, it's like, no, you're lying. Like, of course your brother beats you. That's what brothers do kind of thing. So the fact that it's like, it's so wrong, but to her, everything else is wrong because that's all she ever knew. And it did keep her alive. But I mean, a lot of people who are in abusive relationships, it's like why they keep going back because you're, well, because you get trained to think it's like what you deserve or, you know, that
it's
everyone
all there
else
is
wrong. And so it completely breaks down your sense of self.
I was actually going to say that. You hit the nail on the head with Reen being in like an emotional and physically abusive relationship. But under the guise of it's what's best and we're surviving. It's working. And
a lot of parents who are abusive, they think it's like they're doing what is right.
Tough love.
But it's horrifically damaging.
It's that saying where it's like, you know, when you're hitting the child, this is hurting me more than it's hurting you. It's like, no, it's not. You're throwing punches. But yeah, massive gaslighting. And I think that this is the consequence of sort of like, you know, she's believing one thing. And even though there's evidence that is unraveling or showing a different truth, she is denying like cold, hard evidence and she's distrusting of it. And I think that it's actually really quite gratifying as a reader to champion Vin to this new world that she deserves because she's been through hell. And that she's more cautious and serious. Whereas Kelsier, I really want to talk about Kelsier as a character. I think he's so fantastic. I love him. There is just something about a man who's beloved. His wife betrayed him. He still loves her. He doesn't regret it. He would rather have that love and be betrayed than have never have loved. He was served in the pits where it is like absolute hard labor, where you go there to die. He escaped it and just ripped up all of his arms and he's covered in scars. Yet his demeanor continues to be that of seeing the light and fun or humor in situations. I dig Kelsier as someone that we look up to, admire. But what's really fascinating about Kelsier is his struggles of not only being the good guy and the mentor and the leader, but he's struggling with ego. He wants to make himself, he's got a messiah complex. He's spreading rumors about himself and manipulating situations and building a reputation that is feeding this particular ego, which is interesting because the head of the Skarr that have saved for what seems like decades to be able to provide enough money to fund the operation to free them, to sanction their freedom. It was so that Eden, I think it's a Y, silent Y, so that basically the leader of the Skarrs can step up as the head of the politics, and he can then lead. But you can start seeing that Kelsey is like, but I could do it. Like, why couldn't I be in charge? Look how great I am. My reputation's preceding me. And you can see, like, more and more as the story goes along, the rest of the crew are like, dude, chill out a little bit. Let's bring it back down. Kate's saying, yeah, it's that celebrity complex. Sometimes you believe your own copy. The hatred of nobility. Yeah, Aaron, let's chat about that.
Basically he felt like somebody who's like, he should have been the most cynical, sardonic bastard of a person after being put into a literal hellhole to die. He lost his wife there. He probably saw her
beaten to death,
or at least heard about how
he saw her be beaten to death.
Yeah. He should be like the saddest. He basically should be Bruce Wayne. In the worst possible way.
Yeah. Martha's pearls.
And yet somehow he still kept his humor. He's still, he's not completely without, some darker edge, because even Barish is like pointing out, it's like he keeps killing nobleborns. He has his hard on for wanting to kill the Lord Ruler, because of what happened, which is understandable. But it's like regular people, it's like he will go out of his way just to, put them in their place, but not outright kill them. He wants to help people he can, but he's more happy than he is sad, despite everything.
But it's backed a little bit by this like martyrdom, in a way.
Yeah, he is
savior.
Slowly starting to believe his own hype.
He's our white savior complex that we've got going there. And then Colleen backs it up with but he does like that balance of his light and jovial nature is sort of darkened by his hatred for the nobility and the Lord Ruler. This is a man that is fueled by revenge, and they have a task, a goal, and that's to disrupt the system, to bring down the tyrant, basically, because they're in a tyrannical ruling. But then there's a part of it that's really personal, and he's like, I'm going to be really honest with you guys. If I want to kill him, and everyone's like, that's actually impossible. He's a demigod, like he's immortal. Yeah, but I'm going to try and do it. And you're like, okay, well, your revenge could hinder the big task at hand. That is our priority. And he's like, yeah, okay. Okay. Radia says, I don't remember where the book splits. I'm just interested, when we finish the book so we can talk about full arcs. We will be doing that in the last month. I agree with you. It's a little bit blurry. If you do open the document that I have that's in the reading part, click that. There's a chapter breakdown, so you can kind of get a refresher on the last few chapters so you know the split. What do we got here? Michelle, do you want to talk about Kelsier going through the darkness to the other side?
Yeah, I really like him as a character too. I think there is such a recklessness about him that reminds me of people who their worldview is that they can just do whatever they want because why not? And a lot of that comes from kind of a dark place.
And in this case, it's revenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is consuming. We've all watched Star Wars. Hello. Anger leads to hate. Hatred leads to suffering.
Yeah. And I think it's really cloaked in charm.
Yeah. That's his mask. But I truly do believe that it is a genuine part inside of who he is. He is just that charismatic, and a good leader should be. That's what makes leaders. a portion of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Avery, you wrote, I love that scene with Vin and Marsh discussing Kelsier. Vin sees someone caring, Marsh sees someone with an ego problem, and they're both right. I want to talk about the relationship between Kelsier and Marsh. We talked about it briefly with Vin going, how come you don't hate him? And yeah, he absolutely would have beaten you. I love their dynamic. I think it's very relatable, where siblings are incredibly different. I don't think my brother's in the chat anymore, but it's a lot like my brother and I. I would be the Kelsier, he would be the Marsh. Absolutely. He's very by the book, or a little bit more logical. Focuses on consequence. The other one's just happy to be here, you know, wants to tell a great story. But I think that if you've watched, I keep coming back to Sherlock Holmes, especially the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock Holmes, because the dynamic between Sherlock and Mycroft, I feel, is Kelsier and Marsh. And I'd love to be able to ask Brandon Sanderson if that's kind of what he was influenced by. There's a picture of the two. I posted it in the hashtag reading part of Discord. But I think that you've got someone who's like, their brains work very, very differently. But there's a little bit of a power struggle, but they go about it in different ways. And one is, I'm brilliant. One, it's the Sherlock, it's the Kelsier. I am brilliant. And the other one goes, yes, you keep saying that. You know, you keep having to say that. But it can get you into trouble, and I'm very serious, and I want to be by the book, and we've got different ways of thinking. And I think it is almost like the left and right brains arguing and fighting with each other. Kelsier has the right side of the brain, which is a little bit more creative, which has spontaneity, which can charge the ego. It's the storytelling, it's the goal, it's the drive, it's the passion. And then you got the left side of the brain, which is very logical, which is numbers crunching. It's, you know, and when we learn about Marsh, he's going to infiltrate the obligators, where he's getting into the system, he's going undercover, it's super dangerous, but he's got his own agenda. But because he is following of the rules and believes in not the structure that they're doing, but he can abide by and understand and follow structure, that's why they're warring a little bit. J Fork says, I'm surprised that you read the Stormlight Archives before the Mistborn trilogy. Oh, I think you're replying to someone.
If I may interject.
Sure.
This dichotomy between the brothers kind of reminds me of my brother, because I have an older brother. I'm the youngest. And my brother is, as I may have been mentioned before, he works as a corporate job for Estee Lauder. And he's all about numbers. He always talks about like he has spreadsheets and timetables, and he loves like sports analytics. And
That's
he's
like
always
my brother. Yes. Like
loves
spreadsheets,
all of that.
data,
and
analyzing. Oh my gosh, yes.
Exactly. And his wife is very similar. She may be a little bit more strict than him, but still, point being is that I'm the opposite side of that, where like I've been told I'm a lot like my mother, where I'm just like, oh, I'm here, let's do something. Oh, that seems fun. I think I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do that. You know,
go with the flow.
Like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, here I am. There you go. You know.
I'm the exact same in my family, by the way. The men are all math-based. My mum and I are all emotion-based. It's a hilarious dynamic for sure. Jay Fawkes, I see that you're new here. Lovely to have you. We do book club, book chat. We select a book every month. This is our book. Usually we talk about it the first 2 Wednesdays of the month. But for this particular November, we are doing the first and the last. So we're talking about the first half of the book this week, and then we'll be talking about the last half of the book, second half of the book on the last week of November. The topics that we're talking about this time around, especially for those that are joining us, hello, big hi. We're talking about the characters. We've done some fan casting. We explained the science-based metal burning magic that takes place in this book. We're talking about world building. We're talking about our main characters and the dynamics between the characters as well. We're kind of avoiding the plot at the moment, but if we are talking plot, it's going to be the first half of this book. So welcome. The people that are chatting, their names pop up. As you can see, mine is right there. This is in our Discord. We have a playing, watching, and reading section of our Discord, but it is under it's behind a paywall in a way. If you sign up to the lowest tier on Patreon to help support a small business, Geek Bomb, you'll get access to all of that. We talk books 24/7 over on our reading channel, and we do a book every single month with Geek Bomb. But I'm also one of the hosts for Nerdist's book club. Nerdist is a huge geek network that's been around for quite some time. We do a book club there. We cover a book a month and we talk about it once for 1 hour. The particular book this month is The Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein that we'll be talking about next week on Wednesday, 5 till 6. But Geek Bomb in the Discord hosts the after chat, which means we all jump in a call, we do questions, we talk, we get real. It's wonderful. I'll Crex, you and you as well. Thank you so much for following and joining in on this. So yeah, if you want to join the Patreon, Gory's just put up the link there. It's just $5 a month, and you basically get something really cool every single week. And we also have a Discord, and they are interchangeable as well. Alrighty, so is anyone who do you relate to the most, I guess? I identify with Kelsier the most here, but we've also got Marsh, Vin, Doxson, Spook. There's so many different characters. Who wants to go first with saying who you relate to the most?
I would say if I had to choose who I related to the most, it would probably have to be Vin.
Uh-huh.
Because, given my childhood was very aggressive and stuff like that. And so I had to work through a lot of, things to better myself, and improve my life.
Did you have different versions of you?
Oh, of course. I ran into someone while I was going to college, and they said, wow, you're completely different from when I knew you in high school.
You're like, that was college Jimmy. College Jimmy,
yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Now it's
exactly.
present day.
Yeah, exactly. Because when the, it's like, it's an evolution, that you go through,
And that's what
like
Vin's
Pokemon.
Going through. Yeah. This is exactly what we're seeing in this book. And I think it's really, I don't know, you champion that.
Exactly. I unless you, purposely deny your growth, you're always going to change and evolve.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree. Who else? Who wants to jump in?
I think I kind of relate to Docs.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of is like an anchor or a keel for Kelsier. He sort of Kelsier bounces his ideas off of him, and he goes along with it, but he's also kind of like, yeah, let's take it down a notch, and just sort of make sure he has some grounding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that big time. He's the one who goes, Kels, you're going, we'll reel it back in, my man. Reel it back in. Aaron, I really like your how you relate to Vin. Do you want to explore that?
Sure. So basically, I view Vin as like being very like introverted quite a bit. Hers is obviously a more extreme example due to her upbringing and how she lived her life. But she is very much like, I am focused on everybody in the room. I may not speak with them, but I am like listening to everything, keeping an eye on everything, looking for all the social cues so I don't trip over my own feet, kind of thing. And for me, it's like, if I wasn't working out of a call center for my day job, it's like I probably would have slowly over time diverged to somebody who doesn't talk that much to people, but is always just constantly observing things. So working at like a call center kind of helped break out of my shell for like talking with random strangers, because that's part of the job.
I like that. The fact that you're saying that she's always observing and analyzing and learning. She's not afraid to speak up if she feels she has to. I get that. I'm going to start asking people that haven't spoken in a little bit. Bree, who do you relate to the most, would you say? Putting people on the spot.
Probably Vin.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was always really shy and very cautious and observant, and I've also been in, abusive situations in my life. So I learned early on to not really trust people for a while. But, I also have evolved over time and
I love hearing
gotten
that.
better.
Are you reading this book like, girl, it gets better?
Yeah.
You run and you don't look back. You got this. Yeah. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, Michelle, please tell me why this is. I kind of see it now that you've explained it, but that's so interesting.
Yeah, it took me a little while to like think through this because at first I was like, I'm really enjoying it, but nobody is relatable. And I was like, well, maybe say that. I think like kind of an old soul. I've gotten that a lot. And, there's both order and chaos, drawn to both, want to do both.
But
So
the important part, which as soon as I was like, really, why? Of course, your thirst for knowledge. This is someone who is a data bank, they collect knowledge and they store it. They are the library that you wish to consume.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Skarr Society, first time in the chat, says, love Sazed. So there you go. And Just Kidding says, I really appreciate Sazed in the ways that he both lives by his ideals, but also tries to respect and learn from the past. I like that as well because gosh, we probably should have gone into this a little bit longer as well. The structure and the hierarchy of this world. We are dealing with like a very unhinged sort of societal structure. You are noble, where you have everything, or you are Skarr, where you have nothing. The majority are in the Skarr. You are essentially a slave. You are working until you die. You are beaten. You have no rights. You have no respect. You are used. You are abused. But at the end of the day, you're the majority. Whereas the noble, they dance on the ashes, They throw balls almost every night. It is so decadent. It is so indulgent. And yet they're the minority that use the Skarr to basically run their empire. I think this is something that we've seen structurally in a lot of sort of fantasy books, this hierarchy breakdown. But the fact that it is so pretty much like abhorrent, the fact that, like the tyrant, the few noble who have everything, and then the unfair and unjust way that this is run, knowing that this is a very corrupt environment and the majority lose every single day. You want them to overthrow the Lord Ruler. You want chaos. You want fairness. It is so extreme. Just Kidding says it's very reminiscent of ancient Spartan culture. You're either a citizen, the elite, or you're a serf. It's so you're championing this rebellion. Like it's do or die. Aaron says that even serfs/peasants in medieval Europe had rights to a certain point. The nobles they served had to make sure they were taken care of and not abused. Here, nope. It is pure capitalism. You work till you die so that a small minority, I would say, can live in decadent lifestyles. So I think it's kind of interesting, like who mistings are, the abuse that takes place with Skarr means that there are Skarr mistings or Mistborns, but of course they're hunted. It is purely fear. Like this is a very scary world, which is why, again, I adore Kelsier and his demeanor, and he's a breath of fresh air for a bleak, bleak place. And I think the fact that ash is falling down, they don't know what flowers are. There's no green. The color has been sucked out. Everything's dirty and grimy unless you're noble. I think that absolute sort of like very descriptive, jarring sort of way that they describe the world. Like ash wasn't necessary. It didn't have to happen, but it just is so thematic with what we're dealing with. So I think that when the world building is taking place, you're like, you've got Skarr, you got nobles, you got a tyrant. You're like, yeah, okay. I get it. I hate it. Let's bring it down. So I think that was a really easy setup. I think the harder part was then introducing what the magic and the lore is. I know that some people had problems with the pre-chapter excerpts where you don't really know where it's coming from or what it pertains to, and you don't really get you don't understand the point and purpose of that until about halfway through, when we see Kelsier take Vin on that impromptu sort of mission, and Sazed is able to retrieve a tome. And this tome is the journal of the man who then becomes the Lord Ruler. So they are humanizing the deity, the immortal being, which I think is important and imperative to what this story is all about. If you cut it and it bleeds, you know? Game Wizard, I can't allow that, and I'm not going to, because I'm a woman who streams video games. But basically, I'll read out your comment for you. The fact that it's explained Skarr Mistings are bastard children of nobles who raped or abused their authority and then are hunted and killed. It says everything, doesn't it? And I think that was like, you know, every time we look at a fantasy setting or anything in the past, it's like, it sucks being a woman. And in this case, it's like, oh, I've got a scratch to itch. I'll choose you, barely adolescent girl. And then when I'm done with you, I have to kill you. Yay. What a time to be alive, you know? For fuck's sake. But then, yeah, but then the noble women, you know, they're like, ooh, would you like some more tea? Maslov says, I relate to Ham as well, especially his pragmatism and proclivity for debate. I love that about him. He's a philosopher. He wants to talk about the meaning behind things. He wants to, yeah, I think that's, especially when Ham isn't he a thug? I think that is so, you know, you picture this big burly guy who's got hairy arms, and he's like, let me debate and talk to you about why the upheaval of this is catastrophic for humanity. That is a really, really well-written character. The Literary Method says, amazing discussion, but I have to go. See you for the second half of Mistborn. Thank you so much for your sub and for joining our community. Yeah, we talk about the first half of the book for 2 hours. We'll be talking about the second half of the book for 2 hours. So we are wrapping things up with this particular first half of the book. We've touched on quite a bit. We didn't do a chapter breakdown, but gosh, I don't know. I really like this book. I'm really digging it. Yeah, Aaron, that's a really great point, because Vin is getting swept up as Valette, and she's starting to live and breathe and act and sound like a noble. She has to remind herself and check herself that she's undercover. She is essentially an agent, and has to retrieve information. But she's getting a little bit distracted. The dress is starting to feel and look really pretty. She's really becoming acclimatized to luxury and this new life that she never thought she would get, let alone deserve. But there's a huge reality check. And this is when she's leaving the ball, and a Skarr servant when a carriage stopped, begged for money. And of course, that is absolutely disgusting and is not allowed. And he's taken away slightly. He's taken away a few meters from the party where his throat is slit. And it instantly brings you back, because me as the reader, I started getting swept up in all of it as well. You know, we're living vicariously through Vin, and it's exciting and it's wonderful and it's so brand new. But it lifts the mask, and behind it you see the ugliness of it all. And I thought it was a jarring moment, but so necessary to just be like, hey, focus. We need to get back on track. And then you're kind of reminded why Kelsier is just, if you are a noble, you're dead to me and I will kill you. If you're a Skarr and you work for the Lord Ruler, that's a death sentence as well. And Marsh has a little bit, oh, Jesse, PB. I have a PB tattoo. PB. Welcome. Thank you for following. Marsh is a little bit different. He wants to learn and understand and infiltrate the system so that he can burn it from the inside after, finding an understanding in how it's all, the whys behind it. I think Kelsey goes, I don't need to know why. I'm done. They're dead to me, and I will take out so many. This leaves a gray area though. And whoever wants to jump in the conversation, please feel free to unmic and unmute and do so. But are both sides wrong? Are both sides right? We've with the introduction of Elend, we know that not all noble are bad necessarily. They were born into that position. They can't help it either. That's all they know and have learnt. But then Kelsier will kill them. And there's that really great moment where he goes on that mission and he takes out, a few soldiers or whatever. And Marsh comes in and he goes, here are the names of all the men that you killed. The men that have families, the men that are just trying to live just like you are. And yet you slaughtered them without any rhyme or reason. You felt it necessary to do that. And he's like, I don't want to read it. I don't care. They're not people to me. So I guess my conversation and question that I have for you is Kelsier right? Or is it different? Is it the lesser of two evils? Yes, Colleen.
Kelsier is almost the opposite side of the coin, where the nobility don't see the Skarr as human, and Kelsier doesn't see the nobility as human. They're just as disposable to him as the Skarr are to the nobility.
Mm-hmm. Great observation. They are dehumanizing, or like they have a new villain of their narrative. And I think the more we learn about the Lord Ruler, the more we're like, why is this in place? What is this about? Who are they protecting? But I think, Aaron says to an extent, right? But his methods seem too extreme. He's punishing everyone who is noble due to the actual people who hurt him. I think because I think abuse is a big theme of this book. Kelsier is punishing the people that stand by and remain silent, the ones that allow the mistreatment, even though it's all they know, and that's the societal structure. The fact that they can slit a boy's throat for trying to stay alive, for seeing Skarr as less than, for living in that denial and living in luxury when there's such discourse and unfairness. Maslov says Kelsier is the classic example of the ends justify the means revolutionary, creating a potential worse future, even though his intentions are noble. Lisa says he's so caught up in his revenge plot that he doesn't want to think about the consequences of his actions. And in if you take a step back, that's not good. But you're exactly right. His ends are justifying the means. But his means are the very thing that he's trying to stop, which is unnecessary murder, And it's interesting that Vin is almost seeing a way for Ellen to be an ally, and Kelsier dismisses it because his path of revenge is blinding him from seeing nobles as a potential ally. I guess he's been burnt so many times, and he's like, I touch the fire and it burns. That's all it's going to be. That's all it's ever going to be. I'm going to blanket that they all deserve to die. Michelle says that extremes are dangerous in any direction. I think the only truths that are that, one, you should not subjugate people, and two, not all evils are the same or equal. Very well said. Colleen says we have Elend and possibly his friends who seem to be questioning the societal structure. That is such a great carrot that was dangled. And the reason why Elend, I feel, and maybe we'll talk about him in the next part of the discussion, I like Elend so much. In fact, you know what? If I relate to anyone, it's probably him, Kelsier and Elend. I'm the men of the book. Because, dudes write men better. But the fact that he's trying to get out, he's bored by the noble women. He's sick of giggling whatevers, that are just all collectively in denial and that aren't questioning the system. So when he asks about the Skarr, and because Vin hasn't been taught what the noble norm is, she tells her truth a little bit. And he's like, tell me more. What about that? And she's like, oh, obviously I fucked up. Oh, gotta play dumb. And I don't really think about it. And he's like disappointed because he's like, finally someone who, wants to fuck the patriarchy. Really? We're looking at a patriarchy in this instance. The Lord Ruler's a dude. Game Wizard wonders if Mare, his wife, was a noble born. Who what? Denounced her nobility to be with Kelsier? The eat the rich syndrome. That's it. Kelsier was raised for a time with nobility until his mother's identity was discovered, and then he became hunted. Oh, that's right. Yes. Who was just chatting? Who I interrupted? Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna reiterate. It's like
it
kind of helps make sense that if Mare was a noble born, maybe that's why he's also resentful of all of them, because it's like
the betrayal.
Yeah, exactly. Like she betrayed me, the nobility betrayed me because kind of steal from the Lord Ruler is supposed to be the biggest heist thing before. Now he gets screwed over, so maybe everybody's to blame.
We are still in the dark a little bit about if Mare betrayed him. They had a bit of a heist, a mission. They were supposed to infiltrate to find out if there was an ATM storage, and the Lord Ruler was waiting for them. And he thanked Mare. He said, thank you, as if thank you for betraying Kelsier, or whether that was a maneuver, a move, a manipulation, we're not entirely sure. But we are led to understand. Oh, I think we went out for a second because it says welcome to the chat. Oop. Yeah, we're just not sure of the details of that. Just that he has unconditional love for her, which I think is really sweet. We are over time. I could talk about this book for another 2 hours, and good thing that we are going to be doing so. The last Wednesday of the month, I believe it's the 24th. It is the 24th. We will be going back here and talking about the second half of the book. We're going to dive straight into it. We also have a guest for what I think could be the first time. We are getting Jake Stormoen. For those that don't know, Jake is an actor. He's huge in the geek community. And if you get eagle eyes on his Instagram page, about 7 or so whatever posts ago, he was reading this book. So he's recently finished it as well. And I was like, do you want to talk about this book? And he goes, yes, but I want to talk about the second half because it's batshit. And I'm like, fantastic. So it is a bit of a dense book. We could talk about this all month and still not cover everything, Avery. Absolutely. Snowfiend, thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate that. So we're going to be back with Jake Stormoen. I can pop his details in the hashtag reading section of our Discord if you don't know who he is, so you can get excited. He's a mega nerd, so this is going to be a lot of fun. Adam! Ugh. Bugger off. I would like to take any recommendations right now for someone that we can raid into. Hopefully some more discussions, some more insights, something that is in lieu of what we've been doing, somewhat educational. Getting 2 Garretts for the price of 1. Thierry, very, very clever. Yes, he plays a character called Garrett in the Outpost series. Snowfiend says, oh my God, hi. Hey, hello. Who we got online? Have we got any suggestions of who we can raid? Oh, the Dungeon Run. The Dungeon Run is playing at the moment. Gory says, oh, I have heaps. Michelle Boyd, Chow Jordan, Feral Wife, For David Blue, Critical Bard, Stephen Spawn. Stephen Spawn, he's doing Jackbox party packs, which I think could be a lot of fun. Stephen Spawn is a fantastic streamer who represents the disabled community loud and just viciously. I don't know what's the word, there's a V word that I wanted to get. He's doing great things. He's an activist. He's awesome. Tell him Maude sent you. Play some Jackbox with him. Let's go raiding. And I will see everyone on the 24th. Next week, though, Nerdist's book is the Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. We have to finish the book by next week. I'm only halfway through it already, so we got to get that happening. And like always, we'll be hosting the after show over at our Geek Bomb Discord. If this is a community that you feel like you could really, really get involved with, join the Patreon. Our $5 a month tier means that you get access to all the unlocked parts of the Discord. You get fast-tracked into a community that love to nerd out. You get to be in the actual chat for book chat. You get to be a part of the after show for Nerdist. It's a real good time. They're real good peeps. And you also help keep Geek Bomb alive and running. And we want to run a website, social medias, community events. We do a bunch, and I get to pay people, which is great. Bye, everyone. Go raid Stephen. Tell him Maude sent you. Drop some Geek Bombs, all right? My lovelies. I'll see everyone soon. Bye. Aww.